If you're thinking about buying in Costa de la Luz, but you still don't know where to focus, this video will help you start in the right place. Because one of the biggest mistakes buyers make is starting with properties too early. They go onto property portals, they see beautiful homes, they get excited, but they still haven't figured out which area actually fits their life, their budget, or their plans. And that matters a lot more than most people think. If we haven't met before, I'm Ricardo Vieira and I help international buyers understand the Costa de la Luz market and make clearer property decisions here in southern Spain. And in this video, I want to help you think about Costa de la Luz in a much clearer way. Not by giving you a random list of places and not by pretending there is one perfect town for everyone, but by using 3 simple filters: your lifestyle, your budget, and your goals. Because if you understand those 3 things first, it becomes much easier to narrow down the right areas before you even start looking seriously at specific properties. So let's start there. First of all, why shouldn't you begin with houses? Because a house can look perfect on paper and still be in the wrong place for you. You might love the terrace, the view, the style of the property, or even the asking price. But if the area doesn't fit the way you want to live, or the way you want to use the property, that decision becomes much weaker. And that's especially true when you're buying from abroad. When you don't know the region well yet, it's very easy to focus on the house and ignore the bigger picture. But in reality, the area often shapes your experience much more than the property itself. It affects your daily life, your convenience, the atmosphere around you, and how easy the property is to enjoy, and even whether the purchase still feels right a year or 2 later. So, instead of asking, which house should I buy, a better first question is, what kind of area actually makes sense for me? And that brings us to the 3 filters I mentioned before. The first one is lifestyle. And when I say lifestyle, I simply mean how you want the property to fit into your real life. Not your dream in the abstract, but your actually day-to-day use. Do you want somewhere quiet and relaxed? Do you want to walk to cafes, restaurants, shops, or the beach? Do you want somewhere that feels very Spanish and local? Or do you prefer somewhere that feels a bit easier and more familiar as an international buyer? Do you want something lively or do you want something slower and calmer? All of that is lifestyle. The second filter is budget. And here I don't just mean what is the maximum you can pay. I mean what level of purchase actually feels comfortable and sensible for you. Because there's a big difference between what you can stretch to and what really fits your life comfortably. And budget also shapes geography. Some areas will simply give you more space, more house, or better overall value than others. So, if you don't think clearly about budget from the beginning, you can easily waste time looking in places that don't really make sense for you. And the third filter is goals. And by goals I mean, what is the real purpose of this purchase? Is it a second home for holidays and long weekends? Is it a place to spend several months a year? Is it part of a retirement or pre-retirement plan? Is it a lifestyle move? Or is it a mix of personal enjoyment and long-term value? Because the right area for a second home is not always the same as the right area for retirement. And the right area for occasional use is not always the same as the right area for living much more regularly. So, before talking about specific places, I think it helps to think about Costa de la Luz through a few buyer profiles. Not because everyone fits neatly into a box, but because it makes the maps much easier to understand. The first profile is the buyer who wants peace, authenticity, and a slower pace of life. This is usually someone who is not looking for the busiest or most obvious location. They want somewhere that feels more relaxed, more local, and less rushed. They often care about atmosphere more than hype. They want to hear Spanish around them, feel more connected to local life, and avoid places that feel too polished or too seasonal. If that sounds like you, places like Ayamonte, Punta Umbría, or even parts of El Rompido could be worth exploring. Not because they are all the same, because they are not, but because they can appeal to buyers who want a calmer rhythm and a stronger sense of place. In this case, the key questions are not just about the property itself. They are things like, what does daily life feel like here? Is this place alive beyond the holiday season? Would I enjoy spending real time here, not just 1 week in summer? That kind of buyer is often happiest in places that feel steady, genuine, and easy to live in at a human pace. The second profile is the buyer looking for a comfortable second home. This person wants the property to be enjoyable, practical, and easy to use. Usually, they are not looking for the most remote or the most complicated option. They want a place that works well for holidays, family stays, and regular escapes. In this case, convenience matters a lot. Access matters. The general ease of the area matters. And the property itself often needs to be easy to manage. You'll sometimes hear the expression lock up and leave. That simply means a home you can close, leave, and come back to without too much worry when you are not using it. If you are buying a second home, areas like Isla Canela, Punta del Moral, or Novo Sancti Petri may be good places to start looking. Why? Because they can make holiday use feel simpler. They tend to work well for beach access, comfort, and a second home lifestyle that is more about enjoyment and ease than about managing complexity. The third profile is the buyer who prioritizes better value and more space. This is often someone who wants their budget to go further. Maybe they want more square meters, more outdoor space, or simply a stronger feeling that they are getting a good value for what they are spending. You'll often hear the phrase value for money, and all that really means is how much quality, space, comfort, or lifestyle do you get for the budget you are putting in. Some buyers are perfectly happy not being in the most famous or most in-demand area if that gives them more property, more calm, or a better overall fit. And that can be a very smart way to think. If this is your mindset, places like Costa, Esuri, some parts of Ayamonte, or less prime areas along the Huelva coast may be worth considering. Not because they are automatically better, but because they may offer more space or more house for the same budgets than some of the better known or high pressure areas. So if your priority is value, flexibility becomes very important. You may need to be a bit less attached to the most obvious names and a bit more open to the places where your money stretches further. And the fourth profile is the buyer thinking about retirement, pre-retirement, or a more stable long-stay lifestyle. This person is usually not just buying for holidays, they are thinking more seriously about daily life. They want good weather, yes, but also comfort. They want a place that works not only in August, but in the middle of normal week in January, February, or November. They may care more about healthcare access, services, walkability, comfort, and the general ease of living than about being in the trendiest place. Walkability, by the way, simply means how easy it is to do everyday things on foot. If that sounds like your situation, places like Ayamonte, Punta Umbría, Chiclana de la Frontera, or Conil de la Frontera may deserve a closer look. Again, not because they suit everyone, but because they can make more sense for buyers who are thinking beyond short stays and focusing more on day-to-day living. And this is where buyers often need to slow down and think carefully. Because the town that feels lovely for a few days on holiday may not be the place that works best if you are planning to spend several months there every year. So for this profile, the real question becomes, can I actually see myself living here? Not just visiting, living. Now, something very important. There is no single best area in Costa de la Luz, and I think that's worth repeating. There is no universally best place. There is only the place that best fits you. Your lifestyle, your budget, your goals. That's why I'm always a little cautious with content that says, these are the top places or this is the #1 area, because the truth is more personal than that. The right place for a retired couple can be completely wrong for someone looking for a low-maintenance holiday apartment. And the right place for someone who wants authenticity and quiet may be very different from the right place for someone who wants easier access or a more familiar international environment. So the goal is not to find the best area in the abstract, the goal is to narrow down the right kind of area for your life. And once you do that, everything gets easier. Your search becomes more focused and the properties you look at make more sense. Your viewing trip becomes more useful and your decisions become clearer. If you're at the beginning of the process, this is how I would think about it. Don't start with houses, start with fit. Start by understanding how you want to live, what feels comfortable financially, and what role this property is going to play in your life. And then narrow down the right areas, and only after that should you start looking seriously at specific homes. That order can save you a lot of time, a lot of confusion, and potentially a lot of mistakes. If you want help narrowing down which areas actually fit your lifestyle, your budget, and your plans, I've left the main link below. And if you are watching this on TV, just scan the QR code on screen now to continue from your phone. You can also message me directly on WhatsApp if that feels easier for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.